Welcome to the Cafe Nightly Show. I'm your host, the Goldsmith. It is the 27th of February, and there's something going on in Discord because I got a bunch of people trying to get in who are having a hard time doing so. That is part of our delay. I'm sorry to see us getting started so late, but I'm glad that we're here. We did have a couple things today. I think they're all in the same vein. I think they're all in the same direction. I think we can pretty easily and pretty clearly sum them up to say, Upland is making that step, making that leap into racing as a core part of the game, at least in the form of competitive racing. Putting some steps or dropping some stakes in the ground, if you were, for staked racing. Some encouragement that I had, complained about or potentially looked for solutions on what is Upland's purpose of having staked racing in the game. Are they incentivizing it? Are they building the game around that? 100%. I'm more than happy to see non-staked racing in the game continue to exist. I do a lot of it with people just to have fun. But, if Upland's going to put staked racing out there, is there some other reason other than, people racing against their buddies without the ability to just, to race by class, which we still don't have. We know it's coming, supposedly. It's been discussed. We just don't have the date yet. But if you can rank by class of vehicle restricted, that's when people are going to be more interested in staked racing. But now we have kind of a workaround here a little bit where Upland's giving an incentive, an additional incentive for people to do stake racing, but we still don't have those controls that allow us to do those staked racing or to make staked racing make sense by restricting people out of those races. You can do it through private racing, but we may through some of these announcements today have hints that some of those additional features that we need to make stake racing make sense are around the bend. And again, the workaround here is there's incentivization to do staked racing, so maybe people put more effort into organizing and setting up and building those races. We'll get into all the announcements. And again, there's been a couple. There's been some revisions. Some of the numbers have changed, but at this point, I think it looks solid. I think we actually have some announcements we can go by, and let's get into those with the disclaimer out of the way. All views and opinions, especially myself, are mine and mine alone. They should not be taken as game strategy or financial advice. Any views or opinions that I express, they are not to be taken, or they are not in line necessarily with the game of Upland or the team of Upland, even if it sounds like they sometimes are, which, hey, sometimes that's just the way they sound. But even the ones that are, the ones that are negative, I definitely support Upland, but to the point of definitely have my own opinions, own views, and if they don't line up with the facts, I try to make it very clear what the facts are, what opinions are, and give you some perspective that definitely does follow the facts of the history here. But let's get right into it. I've got no guests for tonight, so we don't have to worry about the way their views and opinions may or may not be construed as financial advice. But right up front, let's take a look at some of these announcements. It is a late start tonight, so we'll get right on into it. We're kind of on the backside here of a burn. That is the sale of ornaments to shops has kind of stopped or has been halted. With that halt, we know that the remaining Upland created ornaments for the frost season will be burned from those bundles. We know that the ones that are in the game are in the game. We know that people can purchase them through shops who originally received those, if they're looking at having those to decorate for the rest of the frost season. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Keep your eyes out. We could talk about it again. I'll look at the market again at some point. But as of right now, that's a reality. We got the promise it was happening. It did happen. And that kind of happened without fanfare. Maybe Upland could have sent one out and said, hey, we're officially capping the burn's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. But they told us the date, the time, and it did happen. It did get pulled down. The sale got pulled down, and we will see that the 100 and whatever bundles that got sold, that will be all that is out there of the 770 bundles that were available for the frost season structure ornament bundles, direct to MetaVenture sale. All right, with that out of the way, I'm going to share the screen. We're going to take a look. And of course, we're looking at seasonal racing. And we do have a couple different iterations of these announcements. There's been updates. There's been an Upland update with X1 going through these to be able to have that conversation, be able to share that information. But ultimately, I always like the source of materials. So we're going to go to the source materials, and we're going to start with what we got first, because ultimately that was a little bit of the flow of my day. Is what did we get first? What did we get second here? And what are we looking at getting more information on along the way? There we go. All right, so there's a structure ornament. We know that's all set. Start your engines. Seasonal racing is coming at everyone. For all your car enthusiasts out there, the time has come for seasonal racing. This season sees the start of some exciting races with fantastic prizes leading up to qualification for further prizes during Genesis Week. UPX, Spark, and badges are on the line, so make sure that your car or cart is ready to roll. Jump into the races and grab points to climb the leaderboard. Again, points is the key here. As I mentioned, it is kind of a workaround because ultimately staked racing is something that doesn't have all the tools that it needs to flourish, at least in my opinion. I mean, having staked racing without being able to set qualifications on which cars are in which races makes it a little tricky. Again, private codes exist, but we know that we're hoping for a little more on the regulations of these racings here coming forward. Right up front on the top of this announcement, update 227, we've adjusted the staking requirements on a per player stake basis. Clarification that at least 3 or more players must be in a race for points. We'll get to that. That will be later on down the line. But I do want to hit that first, because if you read the announcement earlier this morning, you saw some numbers that didn't make sense. And the reason they didn't make sense is because they talked about the amount of stake that had to be in the race as a whole without really getting into the qualification of the number of racers. And the price pointing, as far as some people saw it, did seem to be higher than what the aim was, or that Upland originally had the aim for. So we'll get into what those stake requirements are. And again, it's a workaround because apparently they're keeping track of those specific amounts. So we're only going to see points from those races count. All right. Right up front here, let's put this out the way it is, the way we had hoped it was going to be here. And that is, if we take a look here at the bold-faced words like we sometimes do, seasonal, annual, it's fine. Seasonal and annual competition. Seasonal means we're going to see these every 2 months. We're going to have a different race series. Kind of had already had that discussion that this was going to happen. Upland talked about it when they were talking about the seasons, that this was going to tie into each season. We're going to have a race series. It was going to kind of sit after the races in the in-between period. And then this idea with annual competition, obviously the annual competition, this means that we have a finals. We have this becoming some sort of a championship series. People can race throughout the year, and then that's going to have accumulative points, which is reasons to continue to participate year-round, which is something that Upland has kind of had some focus on and then lost the focus on. The holidays, being, having some type of event every single season or every single major holiday season. That used to be a thing that used to keep people in the game, that used to get people excited about UGC or whatever that big push was during that season. Kind of saw that meter out a little bit, but now we had seasons, and that's going to happen every 2 months, and that change of every season is going to be a reason to re-engage with the game. That includes gamified earnings. Well, now racing is going to be tied into that as well. Each player puts their racing skills to the test. Again, that is the boldface here is racing skills. Again, Upland has updated racing a couple times to the point that if you sit there and take your hand off the mouse and put your hands behind your back, you will not win a race for the most part. Against other people racing. They may be putting the brake on the whole time, and maybe you do win. But for the most part, if you are going to be racing, you have to put inputs in to win. That's what is expected. That's what would be expected as skill-based competition. The cars that you race with definitely do matter, but now we've got to a much better position of the way that racing is working. And they do put the note out there. They're putting open beta out there to essentially tell you it's not perfect. Join us in this open beta and help us fine-tune the racing extravaganza, paving the way for the official launch in the 2024 Sizzle season. Again, that tells us that the race series, there's prizes, there's participation. Sizzle series, or Sizzle season, that's this coming summer, that's after Genesis season. We are going to see the potential for this to really be a fully formed event in the game of Upland. This is what I kind of saw happening long term. I saw happen a long time ago, and that is Upland's going to try to take racing and position it at a place where a lot of other people saw treasure hunting. People saw treasure hunting as one of the things that you could participate in throughout the year. Put the time in, grind, earn upex, earn spark along the way. Again, the grind, the winning against a computer and gain a prize likely will not be something we see in the game of Upland. It's going to be peer-to-peer. It's not going to be the same as treasure hunting, where people were competing against the algorithm, competing against standards, and making a profit along the way. But the time into the activity resulting in some type of output, I think, is what's here. But in a competitive nature, some people will win and some people will lose. A seasonal spectacle like no other. Each season in Upland will now host a thrilling racing series, transforming the way players engage with racing. By participating in multiplayer races, players will have the chance to earn points and climb the ranks. Again, this is another leaderboard event. This is built on points again. Points can be earned a couple different ways. We'll get into how those points are awarded or where those points come from. But I do want to stress this again. This is staked racing, which hasn't been heavily used. I have a racetrack. I know a lot of people who have racetracks, and they can have their numbers as far as what people are racing on their tracks. And unless you're building your own race series and you're saying, race on my track, here's what we're doing. We have sponsored map assets. You could win this sponsored map asset, or we're going to do this race series together because we want to have fun, and we're blank node and we're going to race on our racetrack. The staked racings aren't being significantly used, and this is a major incentivization to do so. The big point here again is accumulating into this high stakes showdown where the top 12 players battle it out in semifinals and finals. Yes, that is pretty cool. The elite group will not only earn their place in Upland lore, but will also secure points on a prestigious Upland Championship Circuit leaderboard. Again, season to season, this is going to add up. Frost Season Racing, the icebreaker kicking off the grand venture, is the Frost Season Racing. The Frost Racing season marking the official launch of this open beta of racing. This initial phase is all about fine-tuning and perfecting the racing experience, aka Upland is getting and potentially bringing those features in. We've been talking about racing for 2 years now. Last year, we talked about a Brazilian stock car coming into the game. We're talking about that bringing its own racing around it. And this is kind of part of that delivery on the Stock Car Pro. We'll talk about how that is and where that lines up. But this is something that Upland was focusing on when they announced that partnership, when they had Stock Car Pro at Genesis Week 2023, was they're going to push this idea that they're going to make racing the game of Upland a core feature of the game of Upland, something people do competitively. Upland hosts and Upland builds racing series around. And I'll get into a couple of sides here about other racing, user-generated racing, which has been great, where that still lies as far as options for that to exist, to continue to organize and continue to build those, and that those still have a lot of value. But the reality of what is going on here versus what's happened in the past. For each season's final, it will be held at a distinguished Upland monument. Again, we talked about the racetrack that's being built in Lucille. We talked about other racetracks being built throughout Upland. The Lucille racetrack is the one Upland's talking about. with the Lucille racetrack serving as the first one for Frost season. Go figure. We saw the thing get built. We watched it. We said, oh my gosh, that is going to be a racetrack that Upland uses in an official racing event in the not so distant future. There we go. Here's the fulfillment of that promise. Start date Tuesday, February 27th, 9 a.m. PT. It started. Like a lot of these announcements, the announcement comes out right as they're coming out. Theoretically, the racing series was open, and then the rules were changed afterwards. So realistically, when the update went through, that's when this whole series starts in earnest, because the racing that was based on the prior requirements ultimately probably didn't count because the prior requirements weren't clear. End date is going to be Wednesday the 13th of March, 9 a.m. PT. Series 1 finals. Again, this is Series 1. That's for the Series 1 cards. It's going to be Friday, March 15th at 11 a.m. PT. So get into this. We've kind of had this idea that there's differentiated value potentially between different series car. Series 1, ultimately we knew from day one, was built around racing or was going to be more closely tied to racing. We knew that overall and over time, that's where we're going to see some focus on racing exist. We had that conversation as a community about what does Stock Car Pro look like. Upland kind of went into that Upland Championship circuit. So that will be where a lot of the focus is long term of this racing, though other series do have races that are going to be built in them. And yes, we can notice that there are some series here that are missing. There's some series of cars, specifically vans, specifically semis, that don't have representation along this list. It is worth noting those things. But those vehicles, it is pretty clear to say, those vehicles have their own utility and some more direct utility. And hopefully we see those utilities be utilized in a very short period of time in the near future. Series 1 in Stock Car Pro, again, the Upland Championship Series is one class. You got a Series 2 class. You got a Series T class, including monster trucks. So we'll be racing against those monster trucks. We talked about how much people invested to get those monster trucks. Then we talked about the fact that they had some pretty decent stats that helped them in many ways, but that they were similar in some areas, including how they were racing to Series TR. We will see how these line up as we continue to have the race series. Series 4 is its own class. And then, of course, karts is a class. And I love karts as a class. I love karts as a class because it's a level playing field. I love the fact that the stats are exactly the same for every single kart that's out there. With that said, I'm going to be competing in the class series and trying to work in the class series. I now have some R's. And again, this is another area of a lack of parity. We have these series. We have a Series T. We have a Series 4. We have a Series 2. Those are their own class. Within that class, there's just the regular standard, the common. There is the exclusive. There is the rare. The rare is the most valuable. It's the most valuable because it has the best stats. The exclusive is the second most valuable. It's the second most valuable because it has the second best stats. And then, of course, we have at the bottom or on the low side of stats, the common or the standard. And the standard of the common, whether we look at it this way or not, it is a way that if you race against another standard common car, you could have the best racer win all the time. That's going to happen. More than likely, you see the same thing with karts. That's why I love karts. But when you're going to be racing Series 4 Rs versus Series 4 standards or Series 4 column regular, you're not going to necessarily see that the best racer is the winner. The faster car makes a big difference. You'll see that in the Series Ts, of course, as well, with the monster trucks potentially having a little better advantage on some tracks anyways. We'll see how that lines up in some cases. But this is also something else going on here, is we still don't have those locked series. So we'll get into the specifics of where these points are coming from and the fact that we still don't have these series locked races yet. Hints about potential features coming, but the lock series races don't exist at this point. Players are able to participate and win on multiple leaderboards. All car subclasses within the series can be used. Again, the E's and the R's. And again, obviously standards as well. Players will only be able to gain points on each of the leaderboards by participating in races with stakes. Again, as I said, we have had limited justification for races with stakes. Now we have more reason above and beyond just taking a portion of that race pool, that pot, by being the winner. Players will also want to participate in multiplayer races to maximize their score. Again, the more people there are in the races, the more points you may get. Below is how you earn. We could phrase that better, but below is a listing of the points earning table, and we'll see that throughout the frost season for each of the leaderboards. Only races involving 3 or more real-life participants will be eligible. This was an update, but you have to have 3 or more people in the race to get any points at all, to be eligible for points. And there's some interesting things on what races count. Multiplayer races. Participating in multiplayer races with stakes will earn you the following points, regardless of what position you finish in. Race against 2 people, again, that's a total of 3, you get 0.1 point. Race against 3, plus 3 points. Race against 4, plus 5 points. Race against 5, plus 10 points. Points for staking. Players who stake more win more. This holds true for the seasoned races as well. There are 4 levels of race for stakes players can choose from to earn points during the season. Again, you have to be racing in a specific staked class, a specific staked amount, if you want to be earning them points. 1,500 UPX staked per player. First is 5, second is 2, and then third second is 3, third is 2. For points earned. 5,000 UPX staked per player, 15 points for first, 11 points for second. Third place gets 7 points. 10,000 UPX staked per player, 25 points for first, 18 points for second. Third place, 12 points. 15,000 UPX staked per player, 50 points to first, 30 points to second, 20 points to third. You spend more UPX, you put more UPX out there, you get in third place, you are going to get more points. You're going to put yourself up the leaderboard. In a way, it is a little bit of a pay to play here. In a way, it is a put your money where your mouth is option here. And it is not stopping the person who is going to race necessarily in 600, 1,500 UPX staked races from ending up high on the leaderboard. There's no issue there. There's no real restriction. But if you are going to participate in these higher staked races, again, 10 races at 1,500 would be 15,000 UPX overall staked, 50 points, 5 points, 10 times the points. Look at that. The math works. So if we look at it that way, if you're going to race at lower staked races, you're going to win 50% of the races that you participate in at that level, and you are going to keep doing those races. You don't have the 15,000 UPX, but you have the 1,500. As long as you're winning enough to continue to push that pile up, to keep your UPX from dipping below a level that you can afford to put stakes in, it's going to work out for you. Keep in mind that as these staked races happen, if you're getting first, second, third distributed throughout, you're not always getting first, you're not always getting second, you're not always getting third, but you're getting some combination of the 3. You may continue to see that you're netting a profit. You may also see that the community pool, which is a portion of where the funds go from all staked races, that eats up some of those some of those proceeds. So unless you're being competitive and getting in first or second more often than not, you may see that there's a cost to this racing. And for some people, it's worth it. Again, you can race for free. You can race for stakes. And if you race for stakes and you're not winning, you have a cost to it. It's that simple. With that cost to the racing, you may be earning points along the way that tie into these leaderboards that give you a prize and reward. So there is a reason to do these races, even if you're not getting first, second place all the time. So maybe that's an incentive to get people to race more. I think so, but we'll see how this goes. Again, only races with stakes with at least 3 or more players are going to be eligible for leaderboards. Races outside of these amounts won't qualify for multiplayer or staking points. Okay. So keep in mind, if I want to race for 50 UPX, which I definitely can, it's not a high amount. It's equivalent of 5 cents. Again, if we're using the 1,000 to 1 ratio, which we talk about all the time, as not being accurate at this point. But if I want to spend 50 UPX to stake, and I'm going to race against my buddies, Goldsmith, who has a racetrack I race on, is not going to get very much UPX out of it, which is fine. And then my guy who gets first is not going to get very many UPX out of it, but he's going to get a profit, which is great. So that is a great way for people to participate and play and potentially earn in a very mild way. They will not qualify for this event. This event is not built for them. But if they're willing to do the equivalent of $1.50 per staked race, again, 15,000 UPX, the 1,000 to 1 ratio. Let's just call it what it is, UPX. 15,000 UPX, and you're willing to put that level of stakes into each race you do, you're going to be earning points along the way. You're going to be earning points just for participating. Last place still gets points, and you're also going to be earning points for that first, second, third. And here's what's interesting. If you have 3 people in your race and 4 people in your race, and you are going to have first, second, third, fourth. First, second, third, they're going to be earning a significant amount of points for getting first, second, third. So there you add some of that competition along the way. You make the people really want to get in those positions, so that adds some stake. But we still don't have that tie for parity yet. We still don't have that solution where we said only people of this class, of this type of vehicle, are going to be able to get into this race. That's a key thing to keep in mind. You are going to have to build these races in a way that there is parity if you actually want to win. You have to start with similar vehicles for it really to come down to the skill of racing. These top performers will earn points for the Upland Championship Series and begin their journey towards Championship Circuit Finals Genesis Week. More details below. I want to put a note here. There is a differentiated championship series for certain vehicles. Does that make sense? Is that something that lines up with the vehicles? It does. Uplands talked about certain vehicles as racing vehicles from the get-go. That this was their main purpose. This was their main utility. We saw that the Stock Car Pro Series. We talked about the Pro, the competition, and the trainer, and that the Pro had special utility for future racing. This is where that utility comes into play. This is where we start to see that coming. And again, interesting here, Series 1Rs are probably or on par or similar to or right alongside Stock Car Pro Series Pro cars. So we're going to see both of those be the race cars of the game of Upland here moving forward, at least for the immediate future. I would love to see a Series 1E win winning against a Series 1R, win against a Series Stock Car Pro Series car. I'd love to see it happen. I'd love to see that be the case. I don't think it will, but it would be interesting if it did happen. Each season's finals will unfold at an iconic Upland monument, again, specifically the Lucille racetrack. For the Frost season, the finals will be hosted on the Upland Racing League. So this is one I wanted to come around and discuss. The URL, the Upland Racing League, has their own race series and has had their own race series, and they had a partnership with Upland to put a race series out. Now Upland's doing one on their own. That means that you're not going to have to be involved with URL to be part of the race. I think that there wasn't a big threshold. I think it was pretty easy to participate in the races that URL was holding, again, in conjunction with Upland. We had a couple of those races, but this is now directly set up with Upland. However, it is great to see that URL, that somebody, a partner, a user-generated group that had put together early races, and there are other groups that do races. Before Upland was doing a race series or trying to build out a race series, it is interesting. It is cool to see that they are being included here with Upland. So the URL, the Upland Racing League, will be airing these live races on YouTube and Steam. Oh, not Steam, YouTube and Twitch. Wow, mixing metaphors here. Be YouTube and Twitch, and Upland will maybe sharing them on YouTube at later dates, and YouTube Live likely will be out there as well. Highlighting the zenith of Upland's racing scene. Rules for finals: 12 racers in 2 heats of 6 will try to qualify for the finals. Obviously, top 6 are in the finals. Easy enough. Top 3 finishers from each heat will move forward into the finals. Fastest times being the pole position and starter of the race. Easy enough. Same applies for qualifying heats. Top 2 times for the leaderboard will be used as heat starters in pole position. In the event someone errs out of the race, of a heat race, players can try to rejoin. If they can't rejoin, the error keeps them from participating. They will finish with their driverless car finishes. There's a similar race here in the final. You automatically get 6th place if you're aired out. That's even if you finish in 5th, it looks like. If there's multiple cars that error out, then it's going to be fastest time with the driverless cars that qualifies. But if you're not there and you're not controlling your car and it happens to win, which I don't see happening, but if it happened to win somehow because cars pushed each other around with skidding or blocked each other out, you still would not win. You would go to 5th place or 6th place because Upland's rewarding the drivered cars. That makes sense to me. Prizes: top 10 racers in each leaderboard will receive prizes ranging from UPX to Spark, with special badges for Series 1 top 3 finishers. Again, special badges specific to Series 1. Series 1's differentiated set. Go figure. It's the most expensive. It's the most race designed series of cars. The rewards not only recognize achievement, but also fuel the competitive spirit of Upland's racing community. And what's key here is this does not stop, and I'll get into these over here, but this does not stop other forms of racing. It actually encourages them, because you can be racing in one type of racing. You could be racing in Joe Jimmy's Thursday night race series where the prizes are put up in, map assets. And again, you have to stake 1,500 or 15,000 UPX, and you get those rewards inside of Upland. But first place, second place gets some map asset. You could be participating in that race series. You will also be earning points towards the seasonal racing. That's kind of fun. That's an interesting concept that Upland's keeping track of these based on the stake rate, the stake values in the game of Upland. You can have other organizing principles to who's in that race. And as I mentioned, organizing principles matter in these, because you can't just say, hey, Series 1 race cars, let's race each other now, and then just make it an open race and whoever shows up, because you can't restrict it by series as of right now. Let's look at some prizes here. Players achieving the first place in each of the leaderboards here: 15,000 UPX, 20.25 Spark. Second place, catching second place with their vehicle is going to be 100,000 UPX, 0.15 Spark. Third place is 75,000 UPX, 0.1 Spark. 4th through 10th, again, if you're talking about the top 12 getting in, 2 people getting in the top 12, they're not going to get there, and they're going to not get this prize of 50,000 UPX and 0.05 Spark. But it's kind of fun here. The quest for the crown: Upland Championship Circuit. The Upland Championship Circuit stands as the pinnacle of racing achievement in the game of Upland, an annual celebration that crowns the ultimate champion of the tracks. Competitors can only extend this leaderboard by securing a top 12 finish in each seasonal series, making every race a critical step towards glory. Each year, the Upland Championship Circuit will culminate with a final race during Genesis Week. This race will pit the top-ranked racers who've accumulated the most points on the official Championship Circuit leaderboards against each other. Go figure. Championship Circuit structure: the following points are awarded to the top finishers at the end of each season: 30 to 1st, 25 to 2nd, 20 to 3rd, 18 to 4th, 15 to 5th, 12 to 6th, 10 to 7th, 6 to 9th, 4th to 10th, 2 points to 11th place, and 1 point for the 12th. There you go. You still get a point even if you don't win those prizes. Prizes. As Genesis Week approaches, we'll reveal prizes that await the champions. These rewards will be the most coveted and valuable, reserved for top victors. Keep an eye out for more information. Road ahead. As the series progresses, players look forward to new features that redefine racing strategies. Again, being able to set up races that say this is an open race, but only 2 Series 1 Rs. That's going to be big, and I hope that is the case in the not-so-distant future. The introduction of max performance score MPS and consumable boost promises to add depth and complexity to racing experiences, ensuring no 2 races are ever quite the same. All right. So this concept of max performance score MPS, what it appears to be, without Upland getting into all the details, they will get into all the details. But looking at MPS, what that likely looks like is you're going to carry forward a bonus based on previous performance. I got no problem with that. That sounds great. Consumable boost. People have talked about this. People have asked for this. People have said, oh, this would be fun. Technologically, it's fun that it exists. But this is pay to win here, or this is pay to perform better. Upland's going to sell an asset, and you're going to take that asset and you're going to burn it, aka it doesn't exist anymore. That's one of the reasons why we've had these burn events in the past, where we've burnt block explorers to get carts, and we've burnt carts to get monster trucks, which again didn't work quite right. But burnt carts to get monster trucks, why were set up in the first place, was so that we could get this utility of burning things to enhance other assets. And that's what we're talking about, burning an asset and your car performing differently in a specific race because you burnt an asset. And if we look at these pictures, again, these are just illustrative. Do not necessarily think that we'll see exactly these in the future here. They got race wax, they got brake oil, misspelled brake or the wrong brake. Maybe that was intentional. I don't think so. And then energy, which looks like a 5-hour energy. If you've seen such a thing, look at those guys climbing on cliffs. I've seen that before. But this is a pay to perform better in an individual race, which is going to incentivize top racers to potentially get these. Maybe we'll see top racers are enough better than the rest of the class that they don't need to use these consumables. Who knows? And keep in mind that if it's a staked race, everyone has to play by the same rules. And one of the rules are you're allowed to bring blank number of boosts with you. And if you choose not to, you're choosing not to. Don't participate in the race if you feel that you're disadvantaged from not having those boosts. I can agree with that. I can see that as a real reality. That's what I'm going to caution people on as we move forward, with the caveat that if you're going to pay for these boosts and you're going to race against people who don't, it's going to improve your chances of winning, but not guarantee them. That's what I think that Upland has to set these if they're going to sell them this way. They can't be such a boost that they guarantee winning. The MPS score can't be such a boost, such a improved feature that it guarantees that the people who keep winning. But we'll see how these roll out. We'll get more details on them later. And again, Upland does stress that these images represent a conceptual design and aren't subject to change. Maybe they can maybe they can correctly spell the word brake, BRAKE, to put your foot down and then slow down or stop your car, aka braking, as opposed to breaking my vehicle in half because I put the wrong oil in and now it's seized up. All right, let's race. As we embark on this thrilling journey, the Upland Racing Series is not just about the rush of competition. It's a celebration of the community, strategy, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Whether you're a seasoned racer or a newcomer, make your mark. The track of Upland awaits you. This is fun that the way this leaderboard is set, participating in and of itself is going to push you up the leaderboard. Participating more often is going to give you more points. Winning is ultimately what's going to propel you to the top of the leaderboard, unless you're doing hundreds of races, which is going to cost you a lot of OPEX because you're paying to stake for the race. And if you're okay losing all the time, that's fine. But if you're always losing, it's going to be a continued cost to work your way up that leaderboard. All right. Let's take a look at the championship here, what we're looking at and how we've built into this. Stock car racing season, Upland Championship, Circuit Pro Series, and Series 1. We already have points going up here. Matash Pook, 354 points. Again, if you're racing and putting the time in and burning and grinding those gears and running around those tracks, you're going to see these points start to build up for second place, third place. Obviously, building those points, the more you're going to put in, the more you're going to earn. We're going to see these numbers go up. I talked to Shaq earlier today. Shaq's already got 55 points here on the, again, racing a Series 1 or racing with those Stock Car Pro Series cars. Into the other, come on now, you can load. Into the other series, we'll see these other boards hopping up. Series 2 Racing, 8 points to Mavis Realty. Congratulations, Mavis Realty. Mr. Allen C, 3 points to Mr. Allen C. Congratulations, Mr. Allen C. I don't have a Series 2, so I can't participate with you guys, but it looks like you're having fun over there. I will put that point out. There are some of these series that are going to be more competitive and less competitive. If you want to get into racing and you don't have a car, Upland has moved a lot of the focus on car selling to car showrooms in the game of Upland. That is where you're going to be able to pick up a car. Maybe you look and say, hey, Series 2 looks like it's not a competitive series, and decide to go race in that series. If that is you, if you've got that nasally voice, it is your opportunity to potentially go towards that direction. Keeping in mind, the E's and the R's are going to have a distinct advantage above the stock versions, and there are going to be people who already have skills in those racing series who may do better. Caveat is these people who are on that board chose to race with Series 2. People aren't going to choose to race with Series 2 unless they're in a closed race series, unless they're in a racing against each other in a closed series, typically, unless that's all they're driving with, because with the open series, you could have 1Rs, and now you have an advantage, with your car. Now you're probably going to get first place. And we see a lot of that with those open races, open staked races. Obviously, people just don't or may not choose to participate unless you can lock into a series. We do have the ability to do racing the game of Upland. That is a closed, locked race. You have to have the code to get into the race. You give your buddies the code, or you put the code out there to people who are only going to come in with certain cars. And if they come in with the wrong car, you have to have repercussions. You say, you're a naughty boy, you can never come into one of our races again. Or, something. You got to have some rules there, of course, because that is another layer of building the infrastructure of the race, which more power to you. Go ahead and do so. But you're not using the tools of Upland to build it any longer. So you don't always have those locked interests, the ability to put the brakes on if you were to keep certain people from getting in, to create those restrictions. So you have to have those rules of wherever your race series is to stand in the way there. Series T, well, guess who just got some Series TRs? So again, Series TRs, obviously, just like an R anywhere else, going to put you up on the list. It's going to make it easier for you to race against other trucks and win. No questions asked here. Which means at the end of a race, if you're racing against other cars, you're going to have a much better chance of winning against that championship series. But I want to keep that in mind, that realistically, these are cars racing against cars. So, if they're open staked racing and you're racing in open stakes, then you're going to be racing against every other car. And a Series 1R is going to be a Series TR every day in most tracks. With that said, if people want to build a race series, around trucks, they could do so. With the seasonal racing, with staked racing, having it make sense is to say, yeah, everyone with a TR come and race, everyone with a TE come and race, everyone with a T come and race. And then you can have people with Ts who end up pretty high on these leaderboards potentially because they're racing against other Ts, but then competitively, if they were to race against the other TRs, that are higher on the list, they probably won't do as well. They could still win with skill, but it's unlikely or less likely anyways. And then obviously we're going to see some other series here. Down here, let's go. There we've got carts. Here's Series 4. Look at nobody has stake raced with a Series 4 and earned points. Go figure. But carts, this is the one fun one. This is the one I'm looking for. You can make a race that says only carts are allowed. You can make it open into public. Anybody can join it. And guess what? You can earn points. So this is going to be the fun one, at least for me, because right now you don't have to do restrictions. You can have that first, second, third determined by the skill of the racer and not by the car. This is where the action's at, and I've said it before. The carts, until we have additional ways to better build our race alignment or give our race commissioners new tools other than keeping people responsible for following the rules of that race series. Until we are there, this is the class you want to be in if you want to win a race based on your skill, because that is the only one that you can segment out. So look at that list. We have some of the same names over here that we had on the Series 1 series. Race Series 1s against Series 1s, race Series 4s against Series 4s, race carts against carts. That's where you're going to have the best opportunity for people's skills to determine who gets the most points when it comes to the end of a race. And I would love to see this cart list be a lot longer. Again, we see the top 12 here as of right now. If we go up to Series 1, we can get there. If we go to Series 1, we see that there's 23 people on that list, only 12 on carts. People who have carts, go out and race. It's your best opportunity to actually race openly, not have to have a race series, not to have people with a code and using a code and trusting that everybody's going to follow the rules and bring the right vehicles there, and that you have an R racing against a standard. You don't have to worry about that. Just race carts against carts. Let's do it. Let's see those race series build for carts. And again, you can run your race series and post your score and push yourself up the leaderboard here, which is great. It is great that this dovetails with other, series opportunities, people building other race series, user-generated race series that they can all tie together. And I think that's the beauty of this being a leaderboard set. And with that, we're gonna see what Upland's closing words are here, and we're gonna echo them. And that's nothing. The leaderboards are the end here. We don't have any more words on this. We're just waiting for more. Again, right here, I'm gonna come up. We've got to hear what this is. Maybe it's a non-starter. Maybe it's something that the cost is prohibitive and maybe nobody participates in. But if it is going to create a big enough incentive, if it's going to be determinative enough of racing, it may be the difference between winning and losing. We don't know. It may be something that ends up being a barrier to entry, aka if you don't do it, you're not going to win. Again, it just depends on the percentile improvement that we see. We'll see in racing series time and time again that some of the best racers will be very close at the end of races. So that small boost may be enough to push people across the line. Keep that in mind. And then the MPS, or the modifying racing stats based on previous racing or previous inputs, that is going to be an interesting thing to see come down the pike. I'm actually excited about that to some degree. I want it to be done right. I want it to work well. I want it to be really effective, and I hope that is the case. And a couple other takeaways here that aren't here. Again, we have Genesis Week Championship Series that will happen this year. Kind of excited to see how that plays out. But this is all preamble. This is all beta, as Upland's calling it. Sizzle season starts a new year. The year of Upland ends with Genesis Week. I mean, whether or not people think of it that way, but I always think of it that way. Genesis Week ends and starts a year. You look at what happened the last year. You can do finalization. You can do championship. You can do player of the year. You could do broadcaster of the year. You could do a contest that celebrates activities that have happened throughout the year. But you also get new things started. You start with that Genesis, quote unquote, and then you get to the Sizzle season. That's really the start of the year. And if you're going to do something that really is a 12-month, you start in Sizzle season, you run through the year, you end at Genesis week. Pretty easy, pretty simple. That's a calendar we're going to follow year after year. And I want to say the other elf in the room, I keep saying it, we just dropped a big hint about racing at Genesis week. It's probably going to be a live in-person event, or if you can be in person, we can see the race happening live up on the big screen. It's going to be really exciting. But when is it going to be again? Where is it going to be again? How do you get to the live event? We'll see that information hopefully from Upland in the very short future. They have dropped a hint that information is coming, and again, they gave us a little bit of stakes here. One thing that's going to be happening in Genesis Week 2020. For in person, almost without a doubt, is going to be a broadcast of these finals. We may see some of the people who are in the finals at Genesis Week live in person. That'll be kind of an interesting concept to see. But of course, the biggest takeaway here is that Upland is going to use racing as a core mechanic in the game of Upland, as opposed to an additional portion. We know additional features are coming to cars as well. That said, go and take a look at X1's update on, if you want to see the details here a little further, or the way he's putting them out anyways. Go and read the actual documents. I always recommend doing so. Read the source material, get your own feel of it. I've seen a lot of people on the racing side who are trying to do things, and Kiriakanos definitely had some increased traffic. Wow. Look at that. So Stock Car Pro Series cars are selling. Look at that. Go figure. We're seeing Stock Car Pro, and a Series 2R. Look at that. We didn't see a lot of racing in the Series 2, but we did see some. And someone went and bought our Series 2 from Kiriakanos. So yeah, look at that. People have an additional reason to use cars, so we're going to see additional market on cars. Go figure. We're going to see additional market on cars when we have transportation among cities. That'll be coming in the not so distant future. It was interesting to get this announcement before we had the transportation announcement, because the transportation announcement's been teased for months. But we've got more to do with cars. I am optimistic about the future of cars. I think that it is interesting and it's dynamic, and it is nice that they're calling this the beta season. This is the proving point between now and Genesis Week, and this will be a big core portion of the game, or likely a core portion of the game of Upland, where racing kind of ties everything together, or it can be a Big Ten where people can participate in it in different levels and have some little brass ring to reach towards at the end of each season, with culmination of year-end racing rewards. So looking forward to this as being something that, again, builds towards the end of the year, that continues to be the top of the top, or tries to build the top of the top in those racing series. And of course, we're going to see that we build a racing series in 2024 to 2025 from Sizzle season all through, where Upland's going to encourage or reward people for having the Series 1Rs, for having the Stock Car Pro Series Pro cars. If that's somewhere you want to be, those aren't pricey. I mean, those are pricey entry points. Those are the most expensive cars in the game of Upland for the most part, except for some rarities that people have push the values up on based on collector value. But those are areas where you can purchase those vehicles and get a gated entry into advanced racing here down the line with Upland. With that in mind, with that noted, I'm going to put two more notes on it, two more asterisks about cars. First asterisk that I want to put out there is, yes, with cars, Upland has made 2023s, 2024s. They cleared out some of their backlog inventory on the 2022, 2023s, which is nice. We may see more cars come out in the not so distant future. We have the 2024s they can put out, but mostly they'll be coming through car manufacturers, mostly be coming through car showrooms, with the potential of other car manufacturers coming down the line, which may be a long ways out. Carts are only UGC vehicle at this point, and it's a level playing field. That may be a good entry point for anyone who wants to get into racing who wants to get their foothold, to not have to get into a specific racing series and not have to get into locked races, into code-driven races. So keep that in mind. And then the last asterisk, the last piece I want to put out there is to say congratulations to all those race series that have existed in the past. This is not a direct competition with those series. This is something that is an incentive to potentially participate in those series if those series construct themselves in the right ways. I could say right now, if enough people put their hand up, I could say I want to do a race series every Tuesday, and maybe there's sponsors, maybe there's not, and people race their carts against each other, and they come in at there's a race at the 1500, and there's a race at the 15,000 level, or maybe a couple races here there. Hi, Cheese, good on you. I'm glad to see you. And you can drop a couple of these race series in where people participate, based on those lock series, racing against the same series car, but with the carts, it makes it pretty easy. Yes, the trainer is not able to. Cheese, yes, correct. The trainers are not going to be in the race series or not going to be in the championship side of the racing. The competition is not going to be on that side. Cheese as well. We saw that, but good note to be there. But of course, we are going to see that these other race series that are out there are great options. Great availabilities for people to jump in and be a part of these race events. And again, if you are somebody who goes to More Cheese in the Metaverse's show on Friday, she does race series there. Those points, if she chooses to do staked at the right amount, you could be seeing an incentive on these leaderboards. So that is something you can participate in. You can continue to be part of other communities. And I hope that really gets emphasized, is that these other communities, these other racing organizations, they can continue doing what they're doing. They can continue doing incentivization to races. They can do sponsored races. They can do their own race series with their own prizes, knowing that this is on the back end and you could be building your leaderboards. With those in mind, looking forward to the future of racing, looking forward to enhanced utility with cars. Very excited about all of those notes. And of course, we will see this kicking off here immediately. It's already started. If you want to push your way up the leaderboards, go out and get racing now. For tonight, thank you so much for being here. Racing is the key today. Looking for new announcements tomorrow. If you're in the cafe, I know we had some issues with Discord earlier with people having audio, but please feel free to unmute your mics. The floor is yours.